Today we see another application that your first shot is usually your best shot. Today's officer uses his well. Hi friends, welcome to today's bonus badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host as always, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Santa Maria, California.
Palm pepper spray has recently reformulated for even more effect when you bless the deserving with the hot sauce. Palm is what I use between a harsh word and a gun and encourage everyone to do likewise. First interaction that police have with this man, he's actually got a pistol in his hand there and he's got a bunch of 911 calls for that. Officer gets out of the car and tells him to drop it, and that's exactly what's gonna go down, puts that stuff down, and then you see him, he's just gonna drop this pistol, and because of that, he does not get shot. The officers are gonna get him into custody, and this dude is known, he's been interacted with by law enforcement multiple dozens of times. He's a known frequent flyer in the community. So fast forward to our main event here. He's waving a gun around again, or they don't know that it's him, but he's waving a firearm around some more. Multiple 911 calls come in of a guy waving a firearm around, pointing it at people, threatening people with it. Officer is going to show up here at this corner, and our same guy is going to show up. We have some dash cam audio, so let's listen into that.
Hey, let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Get on the ground. Lay down. Lay down. Lay down. One at gunpoint. Lay down. Lay down. Lay down. You will be shot. Lay down. Yes, you do. Lay down. Siéntate. 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 89, he's not complying. Lay down. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. You will be shot. Let go. Drop the gun. Drop it. Do not grab the gun. 89, shots fired. Shots fired.
Zoomed it in so you can see it better. He actually lifts up his shirt, touches the gun with his right hand here, and then he doesn't pull the gun with his right hand, but kind of drops whatever it was in his left hand, goes and picks the gun up with his left hand. First shot breaks, then second shot breaks about about 2/3 of a second to 3/4 of a second later, and had a little delayed response there in actually going and feeling that hit. He was hit by the second shot. They did get him medical attention. He is recovering in the hospital and will face some charges for this of aggravated assault and a couple other charges as well. Here's some pictures that the police department put out of the firearms. The one on the left, the one that he had was a fake firearm, but you can see how lifelike that looks, especially from a distance under stress, and we're gonna think about lessons. It takes skill to make this kind of shot. It's not gonna come to you in your department training, certainly not gonna have this kind of skill on demand after the academy. So go over to Active Self-Protection Extra, our second YouTube channel, subscribe there. We will help you build those skills in your free time and get you to where you can make these too. Mike, I know that there's this narrative that cops are looking for a reason to shoot someone, but what we see again and again on badge cams, they're looking for reasons not to shoot people in reality. And this guy in this particular instance doesn't give him a reason to shoot him because he's not, he's got the gun at his side right here. And I think if an officer might have taken a shot there, maybe, but I think they showed great restraint here.
If you look back at the tape, John, you can see a couple times when he kind of moved his wrist a little bit and did some really hinky stuff that would have made me very, very nervous. But to your point about everyone thinking the cops are all trigger happy, it is a big deal when you use a firearm in the line of duty. There is a lot of investigating and a lot of pain in the neck that goes on, as it should be, behind something like that. So I've personally never met a law enforcement officer who was just dying to shoot someone. The ideal outcome in every situation is if your gun comes out, that it has its intended purpose and intimidates someone enough to stop doing what they're doing, and you can go on with your day.
So I think that this big idea here is, if you have the opportunity to utilize verbal commands, do so, but do so in a way that if this guy decides he wants to point this gun at me, I can use it. But in this case, it's not necessary. And so I just love that these officers show this significant level of restraint because, again, he just kind of drops it in front of him. okay, fine, there wasn't really that big furtive movement that we see that indicates to an officer this guy's about to shoot me, and then they go get him the help he needs. I don't think in this instance they actually charged him with anything. I think they went and tried to get him some help. Now this next time, he's being a huge menace. If you go watch the original, there's like a big water park around here that he's walking around outside of, pointing this gun at people, walking around at these various restaurants and stuff in the corner and doing that same thing. And these are the calls that come in. Now, I want to talk a little bit, Mike, about this officer and the repeated verbal commands and how do we break out of that and do a better job of that?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because frequently in these videos we see officers and deputies getting into that sort of mental verbal loop where it's drop the gun, get on the ground. And after the first couple of times, and they're not doing that, you're just wasting your breath. Now, I've said here in the space before, it's important as the contact officer to be saying something to keep yourself breathing and to keep yourself mentally and physically in the fight. I don't know, other than during force-on-force training, departments could be working on this sort of thing, because I've seen it in force-on-force training where that same verbal loop and you're not really under that much stress. It's not a real-life situation. People still get into that loop of repeating the same command over and over again. And if it's not working, it's not working. Try something else, say something else.
That's it. Try something else. Keep thinking and saying, what do I need to say right now? Maybe that's, hey man, what's going on today? Hey man, we can talk about this or whatever. Now, I think right here, as the guy, we zoom in and he first starts to pull that cover garment with his left hand. Frankly, if the officer had shot him right here, I would have had zero problems in the universe with it. It's almost bordering on too much restraint here. But again, I think the officer should be applauded for not shooting until he absolutely had to.
Yeah, we talk frequently about where is your firearm as an officer. Where is your? It's out obviously at this point because they perceive a threat. But where is it? Are you covering down on the guy to where you can't see what he's doing, or are you at a low ready or compressed position? And clearly here they weren't aimed in because he waited until the gun came out. He could see the gun wasn't in his hand yet, so he used restraint. Was it too much? That could be argued. That's a reasonable point that you made, John. But clearly here they're able to see what his hands are doing, and they don't perceive it to be a deadly threat yet. But you're right. Had he shot him here, it would have been justified. Was it a must-I? I don't think so, but certainly can-I was achieved here.
And again, not trying to shoot somebody, want to stay away from that if at all possible. But now what's going to happen here is he's going to pull the gun with his left hand. Now the gun comes out. But of course, the big challenge here with this first one is he missed. And we can see the fact that he missed right here because of the dust cloud behind him. And this is why, officers, please hear me. Especially you've got some time here that you're at a low ready with this guy. You are issuing commands. But you got to think, man, I need to have all the grip, all the sights, all the trigger to make this shot from 15, 20, 25 yards and make that first one count, because you do not miss fast enough to win a gunfight.
In my old agency, we had a couple of points, I think 7 and 15 yards during the qualification. It wasn't really training, it was testing, but during the qualification where you would fire a couple of rounds and you would come down to a low ready position and then reassess and then re-engage with a couple more rounds. I don't know at this point where the officer's gun is. We can't see what the officer's doing in this video. I don't know who is off to this gentleman's left, who he may have been pointing a gun at potentially, instead of, if you're going to drop a gun, you could just take it out of the waistband and drop it right then and there. You don't have to extend your arm all the way out in this sort of,
Sure.
potentially threatening manner. I think that first shot misses, and at that point he's obviously aimed in. He probably couldn't see that he had dropped the gun at that point and had a follow-up shot. And like you say, John, all the time between the officer's decision to have the trigger break and the actual action, frequently a lot of stuff can happen. And looking back, 2020 hindsight, slow-mo video, we get to freeze frame it, and we can make judgments based on that. But in the moment, this happened very, very quickly. And I think probably
it did.
What happened was he was aimed in and couldn't see.
And probably my guess would be focused on his front sight, real sight accommodation here in order to try to get that hit, which he did with the second one. This is my plug, and I'm not requiring that, but most departments in America now do allow a pistol-mounted optic. And this is kind of the tailor-made spot that a pistol-mounted optic is very helpful, because then your target becomes your front sight. You can see what's going on here. He might have been able to avoid that. I don't blame him for it. I think, again, given everything that's going on here, I think that his conduct is reasonable in this particular case. But one of the reasons you might consider a pistol-mounted optic as a patrol officer is for this very thing, to be able to see that. And I also think they did get him into custody just fine. They gave him appropriate aid. He lived through what happened here, and he is going to face a host of charges. Last thing I want to talk about, Mike, is This idea of, but it wasn't a real gun, because I see that coming up in our culture and in our society. But as an officer, you're only expected to see what a reasonable person would see in that case. And this certainly looks like a real gun to me.
I concur. You know, we can pick apart the officer's actions in these two instances that we have here on tape. But you got to bear in mind, man, if you're running around town in crowded places waving guns around, this is one of the possible outcomes. You know, even if the officer were right, wrong, or indifferent, if you do this often enough, the police can't assume every time they deal with you again and again and again, this time the gun is fake again, the second or third time. They have to assume, they have to make the assumption it's a real gun. That's what they did here, for better or for worse. It wasn't a great outcome. The guy made it through. I think these officers covered their ass.